KM's good too.
Local
yeah,
brand.
and I do love that for Boston people in the summertime when you drive over the Tobin Bridge on a windy day, there's a good quarter-mile stretch that just smells like hot dogs because the wind takes it right from under the smokestacks.
That's terrible.
I love it. I was like, ooh, hot dog mile.
Welcome everyone to S1E1, the show where each week we pick a different sitcom, watch just the first televised episode, and forgetting anything we might know about the future run of that show, rate it and decide if that's a show we want to greenlight or cancel. Today we're going to be talking about Trailer Park Boys. Trailer Park Boys has gone 250 episodes over 12 seasons on Showcase originally. Today we're talking about episode 1, which was called Take Your Little Gun and Get Out of My Trailer Park, which originally aired April 22nd, 2001. So to get things started, I'm Jay Gags. With me as always, the guys, Nick, Gordo, Ferg, and Joe. What's going on, guys?
Know what I'm saying?
Know what I'm
Frig
saying?
off.
Go
So,
back to happy days, you Fonzie-looking fucker.
Now here's a question before we start this for everybody. Is this a comedy?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, 100%.
I don't know if I tracked very many discernible jokes through this entire thing. I kept writing in my notes,
It's
is this
very
a comedy? Does this get funnier later on? It's very interesting. I'm not saying I disliked it. I'm just saying that it was not what I expected.
We find something Joe doesn't
I mean-
like for once.
It's also a product. So the interesting thing about this show is it is admittedly one of those shows that is tough up front. It's a 20-plus-year-old show. Like, this was probably recorded over almost 25 years ago.
It originally aired 21 years ago,
right,
almost
and they-
to the day.
The first part of this series, that black and white part you see, was actually from a movie they did, and they kind of spliced it into the first season. And I think the movie was done like 2 years before the show even started. So who knows when they actually filmed this? But far as I can tell, it's like community access quality production and stuff like that. So it's
Like
tough
Wayne's
to
World.
it's tough to like wrap your head around
It-
because it just looks so much different than everything else.
The quality of how it looks and everything, and this is not a knock because I find it very charming and comforting, is it looks like a Canadian redneck Clerks.
It
trying
felt
to
like
do
Clerks. It did.
a
I-
version.
that was the
That's
first
a
thing.
fair assessment.
It
yeah.
really is.
It
Yeah,
feels like
not
that,
something I
right? The
ever
way it's
thought of
shot
either.
and the cuts.
As soon as it started, I got a Clerks vibe. It was like the overall quality at which
Right.
it was recorded does a lot of that.
And
But
before,
it's like that. It's like a Canadian redneck Clerks trying to do episodes of the TV show Oz,
yep.
starring Tommy
Yeah.
Dreamer, because
The-
that dude looks like that era Tommy Dreamer.
Tommy Dreamer was definitely something that I picked up on. I want to get into this real quick before we move forward too, because I'm just kind of going by what I see when I'm just doing my initial notes. So it started on a network called Showcase, which I assume is a Canadian television station.
It's Canadian HBO.
Okay. And then it moves to Netflix for 4 years, and now it's on something called Swearnet.com.
Swearnet is their own thing. They started it. So like they have all the Trailer Park Boys stuff, and then they have a bunch of other original content.
Yeah, they kind
And I
of.
believe it's still on Netflix too, right? The new
It
ones?
is, yeah.
Yeah, I watched this on Netflix. Thank God.
Everything after. So from what I can tell, when John Dunsworth died, who plays Jim Lahey in this, the trailer park supervisor, when he died, it was kind of like all right, that's enough. Then they went into an animated series, an animated season. And that is supposedly the last of the Trailer Park Boys, that animated season. Who knows? They have stopped and been like, we're done before.
They did
but-
that season of Trailer Park Boys just called Jail, and that was the last thing that came out.
Oh yeah, that's
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
I mean,
I subscribed to Swearnet, which was only like $2 just to watch it, and then I canceled it.
They have an abundance of content. They do like podcasts every day and stuff like that. I should get it.
It seems like these guys have done like a real big cottage industry where there's like comic books, there are animated series, there are toys, there are episodes, there are movies. Like they have really conquered.
And before we get into the show, one last thing is these dudes for 20 plus years now have never been out of character, even on shows like they've been on like Jimmy Kimmel and stuff like that. They never break character. It's always them as their character. Like, very, very rarely will you see Robb Wells as just like Robb Wells, like talking about the show. He's always Ricky in it.
I feel like that's a bigger undertaking if you are Bubbles, from what I've gathered from watching the show.
I was just gonna say, if I go to a grocery store in Nova Scotia and I see Bubbles, is that guy just like, I just want to buy some fucking cat food, and he has to like pull off this character? Because that's a nightmare. That's a living nightmare.
Fucking well, funny thing is he wasn't even supposed to originally be Bubbles. He's just one of the creators, and he didn't have any acting experience.
Get out of town.
Yeah, you can tell in this. It was like a very last minute thing where he was kind of giving the guy who was playing Bubbles tips, like, you should do it like this, you should do it like this, and then they were just like, fuck it, you play him, and that's what happened. And I think they probably decided to have, what is his name, Mike Smith, I think his name, who plays Bubbles, Mike Smith. I think like they decided he was going to play Bubbles like right before they started shooting, so you can tell that his acting chops are not exactly up to snuff. But he picks it up.
It seems to work for him though, because like even my parents are like, "Have you ever watched Trailer Park Boys before? Bubbles is so funny, right?" Like, so I mean, like that character is.
That's so funny that your parents watch this show.
Bubbles
They've been talking about it for years.
Bubbles gets super flanderized, and like he gets better at the character, but he just becomes like one of the main like characters. He's not in this episode that much.
I was going to say, from what I saw in this episode, you can't even Flanderize this character. It's very one-dimensional. There's not much to it. But I'm glad, Joe, you said this earlier, because the more we're talking about it, and now the more you guys are telling us about the animated series, the comic books, the parallels between this and like Clerks and that whole Askew universe that Kevin Smith built now, there's so many parallels. It's kind of crazy.
It's crazy that I never thought about it.
No, as much as saying that one guy looks like Tommy Dreamer, he also kind of looks like Dante too. So I guess you could make another parallel there.
And you get a lot of the same
Julian?
stuff too with...
Yeah. It's that very 90s...
After the time skip when he like triples in size. He doesn't look like him anymore.
Well, that happened
He'll
to
still
Tommy
play Tommy
Dreamer
then.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of the same stuff too with like the wasn't an actor or just a friend of theirs. But and for those of you listening, just to catch you up, Nick, Gordo, Ferg have all watched this show. Me and Joe are foreign to it. This is the first time viewing for the two of us.
I think this is a first where I've seen a show and you guys haven't.
It might be actually,
possibly, because this is the first show you've ever seen. So
this is the show we've done that I've probably seen the most front to back. That as many times.
Too.
Like I've seen a lot of what we've done, but I have watched this series front to back maybe 15 times. Like.
This is probably second.
It's going to be impossible for me to separate, but I'll do my best.
With like 250 episodes of the show, you have like done it that often?
Yeah, because it's such an easy watch. Like it's just like background. And if you've seen it twice already, you know what's happening. So you're just kind of listening for bedtime and stuff. But
you guys get on me for watching The Office that often, and there's like less episodes of that.
Yeah, it's just easy to get on you about things.
But
let's be watching 1987 World Class Championship Wrestling when you go to bed like an adult.
It'll definitely put you to sleep.
Nothing like an armbar, but you're right now.
All right, so let's get into the episode itself. So the show starts with what looks like home video footage. Nick, you talked about it in the beginning. It's just two guys walking down the street, and they kind of turn the corner, and they spot someone that they seem to recognize with a dog. Then one of them pulls a gun and starts yelling at the guy to release the dog and get away from it. And then that guy also has a gun, and there's like a brief standoff, and it just kind of results in gunfire. And then the two guys who were originally walking down the street are now just kind of shooting as they walk down. And it was a very odd way to start the show because, again, just knowing what I knew from you guys, like, oh, the show is so funny. And it's very dry. It's just gunfire. There's no joke there.
Having never seen this show and not really knowing much about it except for like what the characters look like, it being in black and white and a guy with a pompadour shooting, yelling, release the dog asshole in black and white. I was like, this is half a minute. What is happening here?
This is a Tarantino movie.
Yes, this definitely feels like somebody with a video camera at like their film project was like, we're going to make Reservoir Dogs.
For you guys doing your best to kind of release all of your knowledge of the show and just kind of going into this fresh, what would you say seeing just that first scene?
I've never actually seen the first movie, so
it's confusing
know what it was, and I thought they would kind of go into it in the episode. I was hoping they would, and they didn't.
I mean, I think so. It is confusing, and like without knowing more about the show, it kind of stays confusing because you need to understand that every first episode of every season is them getting out of jail, and the last episode of every season is them going into jail.
Spoiler alert!
But yeah, I mean, yes and no, like because it doesn't really. but that's how it is. So
Every
like that's
season
how they
ends with them going to jail.
Right. So without having a season before the first, obviously they had to get themselves into jail somehow, and this is how they did that.
All right. So, yeah, and from there, we cut to the Van Allen Correctional Center outside of Halifax, Nova Scotia. And this is when we see, like, for sure that this is, like, a documentary-style show, which I didn't even know about the show. Because that early footage looks like, you say it's from a movie, but it looks like home movie footage. Or, like, found, like, for 2001, it wouldn't have been, like, cell phone stuff, but it has that kind of vibe to it.
See, I don't even know in the context of the show, if that's before the show existed, why would it be recording? Because I haven't seen that movie either.
It's like a short film too, right? It's just like a project or something. It's not like a big theatrically released film. Or anything,
yeah,
right?
no. It's like something
I understand on the show itself, it's a mockumentary, but it's just starting at like when we come in. So who was recording the shooting and stuff? If the show wasn't going on yet.
Like it was almost like just found footage or whatever, just to give you the backstory. And yeah, so you know that it's like a documentary style show, and it's addressed and like, so they're knowingly like interviewing and talking to the camera, but there is no real word on why. Not to go too ahead, is that ever really addressed, or is it just, you just kind of enter that thing? Do we know why they're recording these guys?
They kind of touch on it. Julian
hires them for one reason or another. I forget exactly what it was, or if they even tell you, but Julian does hire them. And I think it's because they're getting like paid to do it too, or something like that. Money was involved, but
I know at the end of this episode, there's a point where Ricky says to him like, "Oh, you're doing your TV show or whatever." So it does look like he's the kind of the guy in charge, because even though Ricky's been interviewed throughout, he does refer to it as Julian's show later on.
I feel like it can work though. Like you mentioned The Office earlier, right? Like you don't find out who's filming and why for
you don't need to know
on The Office. You just sort of get into the world.
And then
there's also a Swearnet movie that like it's starring the three like creators, like Ricky, Julian, and Bubbles, but as themselves. And it like, I don't know how canon it's supposed to be, but it kind of shows them like signing them to like to do it, to do the show and stuff.
Yeah, they get into like the contract.
Yeah,
like as if they're not the same people. They have to get them to sign the It's weird. It's strange.
Like a meta movie.
Right,
like
exactly.
I don't know if that's canon or not.
There's also a scene in that movie where they're at a hockey game and Randy, the shirtless guy, who, I don't know if you remember the fat shirtless guy that's with Mr. Lahey.
Yeah, the assistant.
He falls off the balcony at a hockey game and he's naked and his dick just lands on the broadcast camera. And for like a minute straight, it's just this dude's actual dick flopping around on the screen. It's the weirdest movie ever.
See, now, if that was in this episode, I wouldn't have asked the question, is this a comedy? I would be telling you right now it was the funniest TV show I've ever seen in my entire life.
And just to get into it, John Paul Tremblay is Julian, Robb Wells is Ricky. Is this kind of all they are ever known for?
Yeah,
they've
all tried to dabble in other things. Robb Wells especially, you'll see him pop up in something strange every now and again, but as far as their catalog goes, this is number one for all of them.
I imagine they're making pretty good living off of this if they've spread it out so far.
Mike Smith was the guitarist in a band The Sandbox. I don't know, Joe would be the only person who's
and his brother Robert Smith was
They're like kind of like a Canadian Marcy's Playground almost.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird like Canadian 90s alternative rock happening. Where Bubbles was in that band Sandbox, and then like the main guy for this who like directs and produces everything, did a bunch of music videos for like Len.
Who Barry Dunn?
Oh no.
Yeah, Canadian rock, you gotta do that CanCon. But yeah, there's a lot of weird music connections there.
Also, so
would you steal my sunshine?
That would be Len. Unfortunately, that is Len.
So anyways, in this we find out they both kind of ended up in jail from that shootout for 18 months. And
not bad for being in a shootout in public.
No.
They're Canadian.
Especially if they're like repeat offenders and are always going to jail. Julian makes it very clear that he's planning to clean up his life. He wants to stay away from Ricky once he's out. Ricky talks about how as soon as he gets out, he plans to go to Julian's and just party and drink. So obviously they're not on the same page as they're exiting here.
I can't blame anybody after almost 2 years in jail going getting drunk, right? Like that seems like such an obvious, like I would eat food and drink. That's like all you'd want to do first.
Yep.
Or like say hello to your family and friends and give them hugs.
Yeah, well, you can eat and drink and do that at the same time. It's
Yeah.
non-mutually exclusive.
And we get to the intro of the show. The intro is pretty basic. It's just kind of just shots of the trailer park that they live in, kind of with like a sepia tone and
With the
piano
elevated
music. Yeah, it's like nothing crazy. It's fine for the show. I don't know if you guys have any opinions of it one way or another.
I will say one thing I found interesting. I try not to look up too much info on a show I haven't seen before, so I don't know more than I should. But one little tidbit I saw was that they filmed this the first few seasons in real trailer parks, but every time they did it, it was causing such an issue that like people wanted to go to these parks to like, you know, like people were bothering people who actually live there. They eventually
like
built
check
a
out the
set.
spots and stuff.
Yeah, they just built a set because they were actually bothering people who lived in these places.
Yeah, they bought a small trailer park and did like the last few seasons, I think, in it.
And before that, it was a different trailer park every time. They just go to a different one and rent it up.
Because they probably were never invited to go back after.
Yeah, I'm
after the
sure they
first
burnt
time.
their bridges pretty quick.
And it's funny, too, Nova Scotia, not too far from us. Also where we get our Christmas tree from, in Boston.
Yeah. Nova Scotia, there's a ferry that goes from Portland, Maine to Nova Scotia. It only takes a couple hours. Like, it's really close.
Yeah.
So after the intro, we get the next scene where Julian is just walking down the hallway of the jail, and he's kind of just telling the camera more about how he has no intentions to hang out with Ricky once they get out, which then cuts to a talking head of Ricky, who's kind of finding out what Julian said. And he says Julian can frig off if that's what he's telling you, because it's not my fault. He says it's Julian's fault that he went to jail. And he's the one, Julian's the one who's always force feeding him drugs and doing things like that. And he also goes on to say that the counselors told him that it's not his fault anyways, it's society's fault.
It's funny. It's just like, that's kind of like bullshit. Like, they tell like all these fucking repeat offenders.
If you
Society
convince
failed
them,
you.
yeah, if you convince these prisoners that they're inherently not bad, then they might be inspired to clean up when they get out. But if you
It's
you
gonna
know
be
give
a
them
tough. Oh, sorry, I'm gonna cut you off.
Ricky
It's a tough-
is just so simple and like impressionable that like he takes that to heart and he'll use it. He also just like uses it in like his repertoire of like, because he's very street smart. You don't get a lot of it in this episode, but he's very like he's a very dumb person, but he's really smart when it comes to like getting around the system and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because you don't see that in this episode at all.
No, not
You
at all.
do not get that in this one.
He also does the kind of like, oh, Julian doesn't want to hang out with me. Well, I don't need him either. And he says that Julian's the reason that they've gone to jail 3 times now. So this is not the first time they've done a stint in jail that we're learning right now.
I am still a little thrown by only a year and a half in jail for your third time in prison, and one
they
of
go to
those
jail so
offenses
many-
is shooting at people.
In
Right.
one of their interviews, I think it might have been like when they were on like Jimmy Kimmel or something like that towards the end of the series. They did the math, and by the end of the series, they would have spent almost 20 years in jail between all their stints.
So basically, as soon as these interviews end, you see Ricky run up to a cab that Julian's about to get into, and he's figuring he's going to like throw his bag in the trunk and join him because they're both going home to essentially the same place. But this is when Julian kind of reaffirms that, no, I'm done with you right now. And he's going to stick to his guns, and he grabs like his bag and he just like tosses it into the middle of the street.
It's kind of a shithead move. You're going to the same place. Like, even if you don't like the guy, like, give him the ride back and then break
I
clean.
just-
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just love when the cab's driving away, he throws his own bag back at the cab.
Yeah, that's like the next shot is when he's
Yeah.
inside, because you get that perspective of you're watching Julian from the front seat looking into the back seat. You just see that bag fly over to the trunk.
Also, I mean, like I said, there were some laughs here or whatever, but I just love that when he's in the cab driving and he's trying to explain that he doesn't want to be friends with him anymore, they drive by a woman and he just goes, geez, she's gotten big. Which made me actually,
Yeah.
it's just tossed off so like nonchalantly.
He'd been gone for 18 months.
It's weird though, because they don't have a lot of screen time together other than this and in the end. And it's like a real disservice to like for a pilot, because the two of them like together like the whole show. So you don't get a lot of their chemistry.
Yeah,
which
you do.
is
You separate
vast.
the main characters for the majority of this episode. Yeah, I never really even thought about that watching it.
Yeah,
One thing I
'cause
thought of as far as the characters is, and we've seen this a lot in shows we cover, it's tough when you're building a universe for the very first episode to try to introduce you to so many people.
Yeah.
And this episode is like, oh, this is like the 2 guys over here. This is this girl. This is her friend. These are like it
Yeah,
just
it's
it's a lot
almost
of
like a
people in 20
divide and
minutes.
conquer thing, so they can get everybody in.
Yeah.
they could have definitely trimmed it, and we'll talk more about the episode as we go along. Obviously, we're still pretty early on into it. But yeah, they probably could have trimmed some of that stuff out to really focus on, I think you get a lot of Julian, you don't get a lot of Ricky. I bet the time is actually pretty equal, but I think you get a better understanding of who Julian is after this episode than Ricky. And from here, this is the first time we get to meet Mr. Lahey, which you said has recently passed, John Dunsworth.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he's the trailer park supervisor. And he's also now, everyone seems to be involved in this mockumentary thing. But like his camera it looks like it was attached to his car. And his way to interview is to look out of the driver's seat of his car and talk to the camera as he's driving.
He's driving like Ace Ventura for his entire monologue, which is pretty awesome.
And he basically says that Julian and Ricky are responsible for ruining the trailer park. And it used to be very peaceful and quiet until then. And says what gets him is that like most of the younger kids there look up to them. He's got kids flying around there, throwing bottles at people, growing dope, squealing tires, jumping motorcycles over trailers. And the list goes on. And he says he's been there for 16 years and he's seen it all. But those two, particularly Ricky, they're the worst. So of all the things that go on at this trailer park, they seem to be the root of more of the serious problems there.
Also, John Dunsworth is the only, as far as I know, one of the only classically trained actors on this show. Get
out of town.
Yeah, he is the only one. He owned a Joe. I think it sounds like you read the IMDb trivia. Also, he owned an acting school in Nova Scotia too. So I don't know if maybe that's how they found him or what.
Or they went to him to be like, we're doing this thing. Can you make us look a little bit like we know what we're doing when it comes to acting? You can tell, though, but I think that's great. Like, if you have one person who can anchor this show, it also helps to go to show that he's a totally different character than the rest of them, because he inherently acts completely different just by the fact that he's actually acting. You know what I mean? So it separates him out as an authority figure or as, like, a different part of the group, right?
Yeah, even on, like, a bigger scale.
Completely changes later on, too. He becomes just like a functioning alcoholic. Not to get like super ahead, but he's known for just being
barely functioning.
I am the liquor.
When we talk
about
about
one of those things where I just wish I didn't watch the pilot. Almost, I wish I watched like season 4, episode 1.
I'm telling you, before we ever even get into the green lights or cancels, without me knowing how you guys feel about it, you have to give it more because. I do think this is a good pilot, but this show turns into such a fucking unique gem of a show that you don't really get to experience in this pilot. So,
especially Joe, who likes to like speak sitcom, you would only quote this show.
Yeah.
Guys, we are skipping ahead so far at this point because we have hardly touched on this episode before we plead our cases for our final verdicts. But I want to go back to what you guys were saying a little bit, having that one actor to kind of anchor them. It's not uncommon. It kind of made me think about like, we did Roseanne a few weeks back and how she had like no acting experience going into that. She was just a stand-up, but you surround her with people who know what they're doing and it kind of covers it a little bit.
But they hired her though because she's funny. She's hygienic.
Hygienic. In the next scene, we see Ricky trying to like hold up some kid for smokes and $15. And he like just tackles him to the ground and tries to wrestle it out of him until Lahey pulls up with some shirtless guy, and they pull the two apart. In the conversation between the three after this kid walks off, we find out the guy with no shirt is Randy. Nick, you were talking about him a little bit earlier, and that's the assistant supervisor of the trailer park.
Assistant trailer park supervisor, yep. Not to be confused with assistant to the trailer park supervisor.
To give you the visual, he's just kind of like a middle-aged white guy, dad bod, khakis, got like a radio hanging off of his khakis.
And a big old gut.
Shirt for no reason.
Gut, hairy chest. Not the kind of guy that should be running around shirtless at all times, but is the guy.
Shirts make him itchy.
Well, we've all been there. Now, how young was this kid that Ricky attacked supposed to be? I couldn't tell if this kid was 11 or 21. Like, I was having a real hard time being like, how offensive or egregious is this tackle?
Yeah, you couldn't see his like face or anything, so it was really tough to tell.
It seems like cigarettes are very much a currency here, much like a prison sort of
I know.
Trope.
Cigarettes are big there, huh?
That kid is just like, he's not a main character. He's not even a side character. He was just like an extra in this thing because I don't remember seeing him again.
I do like when they were all talking Ricky asks Randy, like, what are you, the assistant or something? He's like, well, yes, I am. He goes, well, that's pretty fucked up. I don't know why it's that fucked up that there's an assistant, but...
Well, it seems like there is a pretty decent amount of stuff going on in this trailer park, right? Like, there is a guy who just drives around brandishing a gun constantly. I imagine that, you probably need some sort of elemental force to try to balance it out.
Lahey talked about it not long ago, of all the stuff that he sees that goes on there.
They talk about in this episode that Lahey's a former police officer.
No, I don't believe so.
I don't think
I won't go
comes
into
up
that.
later.
Then.
That
And
comes
then-
up way later.
We cut to Julian, who introduces us to Trinity, who's Ricky's daughter. At that point, they get into her age earlier. At that point, I clocked her at around 6-ish. I think later they say she's either 7 or 8. Ricky wasn't sure. And Trinity and Julian tell each other how much they missed each other. And she asks if Ricky's out of jail too, which I thought was interesting because she didn't say dad. She said Ricky. And then asks if Julian is going to visit her mommy. And he's like, I don't know, maybe. And they don't touch on it later. I feel like that's something that comes into play. I feel like there had to be something between, Lisa and Julian. That's my
Sarah is Ricky's baby mama.
I thought Sarah was.
I mean, not Sarah.
not
uh,
Sarah.
Lucy.
Right? And Sarah is
Lucy.
Lizzie's roommate.
Yeah. Also, Sarah, the redheaded girl, is John Dunsworth's daughter in real life.
Okay.
The little girl.
But,
No, not the little
called,
girl.
though?
The redhead that lives with Lucy.
so it was strange
Oh.
seeing this because it looks like they were setting something up. And
Right. That's the vibe I got. That there was like Julian was doing something with Ricky's girlfriend before him. Like that's the vibe I got watching that.
There's really no payoff to that, but Lucy really is a whore. So it's possible.
Okay.
And then we get back to Ricky talking to Mr. Lahey and Randy. And it's clear Ricky has nowhere to stay, but he insists he can stay at any one of the trailers because everyone there likes him so much. Unlike you two dicks.
That's like the most Ricky part of the whole thing.
Yeah. And Lahey tells him that things have changed around there and he needs to keep his nose clean now. But, I mean, for what we learned later, things did not change for the better. Like, when he said that, I was like, oh, like, since you guys have been gone, since you caused all this trouble, this place is really cleaned up. And then the whole premise of the rest of the episode is how much worse the trailer park got because of someone else. So it's kind of a
This is
weird
like
line.
do you
Yeah.
trust the enemy that you know versus the new enemy sort of scenario. You know what I mean? You're like, well, he's a dickhead we're used to, but this new dickhead's worse. So
Yeah,
in the
but I
scheme
feel
of
like
things-
Lahey kind of hates Ricky and Julian so much that he's willing to deal with the new one just to see what happens.
Well, he seems like he's pretty afraid of the new guy too, though.
Yeah, that too.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, Ricky and Julian are always dicks, but they're kind of unassuming otherwise.
They're
I was
homegrown
gonna say they're
dicks.
harmless and don't carry guns, but the first scene we saw in this episode was them literally shooting guns at people.
And after that, Julian's finally about to go home. And from outside, you can see it's a mess. There's like broken shopping carts and trash outside the door. And he said he let Corey and Trevor stay there while he was gone. And they basically trashed the place, which cuts to inside where we meet these two. And they're talking about how great it's going to be when Julian's back and how it's pretty messy right now. And they have plenty of time to clean before he's back anyways, which I was a little confused by that timeline because they're cutting to that. Like, I don't know if that's supposed to be real time or was shot at a different time. It's very tough to
I mean, the
track
fact
this
that
at
the
times.
camera crew is there at all kind of blows that one up a little bit.
Right. And I mean, they're both
just
kind
really
of space
dumb,
cadets.
and they have
yeah.
no concept of time.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Like he's
And-
already out. And
Yeah, I mean, they're
we know
smoking
that,
weed
but
off
they
hot
don't.
knives.
I was going to ask
Yeah,
you,
yeah,
was that
because-
Yeah, I have
weed
a
or
lot
was
of
it?
questions about that.
There's probably
I wasn't-
hash. Hash is
I
like
was-
the big thing that they smoke there. Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
was
hash is sticky.
Yeah, I was getting a
Sticky, icky.
vibe, and I don't really, I don't mess with stuff like that personally, so I wasn't really sure. I was like, I'll just ask if anyone knows what exactly they were doing.
I don't know
And
much about hash. I mean, I don't know much about how they make it or whatever, but from what I've gathered, it's almost like there's like a binding agent in it, so it's like a sticky.
It's compressed pot
Yeah,
So
it's like
is it the
It's like
stickiness of the
of the marijuana.
marijuana? I guess
after it,
'cause- yeah, okay.
after it gets
It's all
like,
the
squished.
leftover product, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like not
and
wasted.
it's like the oils that like are in it, but
It's actually
because
pretty
it's, like,
intense
process.
process.
Yeah. No
You have to like
worries.
soak it in isopropyl alcohol. It separates everything, and then what separates
like
is what you
hydraulic press
collect,
it.
and then you can press it.
the science guy.
This is
I've always said it amazes me. I'm not personally anyone I've never smoked in my life.
They call you
But-
Big Pot J. What are you talking about?
Which is so weird
It's because
you're
that's
usually
because I
pretty
make big
mellow.
things of chili. Yeah. But
Big Pot J was the best you could come up with.
Listen,
so
How rough is your week, Ben? Yeah, he's what do you call it there? A Big Pot J. Anyway, keep it moving. Next one.
but what I always found kind of fascinating is, you have your typical like tropes about like what a stoner is and all this, and the thing like the laziness and all these things that kind of go with it, the connotation. You give even the laziest stoner like weed, and they will MacGyver some way to make that work. You can give them no tools to actually get high with it, and they will fasten something and make it happen.
I always find it interesting the ways that human beings in general, will go to find a way to get themselves fucked up. Like, if you look at the process it takes to get tobacco from being a plant to being something you can smoke, it must have taken 1,000 years of trial and error for boredom to figure that out.
Well,
Like,
even
how do you
look
think
back
to
to
distill alcohol is such a crazy process that you just get blown up doing if you don't know what you're doing right? Like, it's a long, we go a long way to get
Yeah.
fucked up.
just Nick talking about like the process of making hash. Like, think of how many failed like experiments happened before they came across this way that actually worked.
Many people.
And how many
have
people
died.
die?
A lot. I
You know
know.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
the first person who figured out crack or something, like these drugs that you have to like do a process of taking a regular drug that exists and then adding chemicals to it and then see what happens. Somebody has to smoke that for the first time each iteration. And I can't imagine that always goes well.
Bring out the
What
royal
if I mix
tester.
it with this bleach stuff?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I imagine that's the same thing too with like, when you think about like the berries and stuff that we eat as well. Like, there's always like that one caveman.
Yeah, we
That-
talked about this on the show before. Like
That, like,
testing out
you-
foods.
Yeah, that like you pick like one berry in the woods, eat it, and then you die, and everyone goes, "Okay, well, don't eat that one. Thanks, Greg." And then
Poor Greg.
Poor Greg. It's always
Me-
Greg.
Meanwhile, the other guy got to try a raspberry.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, it's pretty good. Just moved on.
But yeah, it's the same thing.
One
with-
guy got dingleberry.
Well, I think in that aspect, I think a lot of people, I think a lot of people got to watch animals do it, whereas you couldn't really get an animal to smoke crack after the first time you made it. So like,
You got to put a lot of effort into it.
And also these two guys, can you guys like describe them?
they're like,
Shitheads.
yeah, they're like shitheads, and one of them looks like somebody, and I can never. Of course, now that I'm on the spot, I can't. Think
one of
who he
them's
looks
real
like.
name, Corey.
Corey,
one of them's
I
real
think
name
is his real
is-
name.
No, one of them's real name is Michael Jackson.
Oh,
But
What an unfortunate name.
they're essentially like what I would imagine like dumber Jay and Silent Bob would be.
More
there's another
references,
parallel, yeah.
Yeah,
the
I mean,
way I would think of them is like they're like minions without
Yeah.
leaders. So it's like if let's say like
it's a great way to put it. Yeah.
let's say the Joker's gang, the Joker goes to jail. They're like, what do we do now? Just
Yeah.
like that's them. So they're just running around with their heads cut off until their like masters come back.
I would say physically they do look like the time though, right? This is 2001. They look like a bunch of kids like we went to high school with in 2001, right? Like really long, remember like really long jean shorts and sort of oversized t-shirts and sort of like a hip hop clothing style or whatever that you don't see much anymore now, right? Like I don't remember the last time I saw a tall tee. I was thinking about those the other day. I was like, oh, remember we used to wear those tall tees? You'd see them
Yeah, that
everywhere?
was early 2000s.
Yeah, and now you don't see that so much. I'm sure some people still do, but I imagine it's like bell bottoms when they went out of style, where like if you really liked bell bottoms, you bought like 40 pairs of them before Bradley's didn't have them anymore because you knew they'd be gone, right? Like there's some guy with a closet full of like,
Mom, we need to go to
Tall
Caldor
tees.
right now.
yeah, right, yeah, get to the Ames.
And then we, as soon as like, again, they're talking about how they have plenty of time to clean up, we cut to Julian now walking through the place. And again, it's a mess. And, but you can hear video games being played in the background the whole time. And later on, when he does get into the room where they are, you do see like a Super Nintendo control. The game they were playing though sounded like older, like the sound effects they were using sounded like a more like 8-bit style game, but that's neither here nor there. And
I did like that when they come in, he's kind of mad because his house is all messed up, and the first thing he picks up is like a really fancy, ornate, standing brass ashtray. Like the kind you would see in like a fancy steakhouse when we were kids or whatever. Like I just love that they're like smoking off of knives, and that's what they're paying attention to, but they knocked over this nice piece of ornate brass that actually is an ashtray. Like, I don't know, it seemed like a funny touch to me.
They also had like that look like they were just caught by their parents doing something wrong. Like you walked in the room and they're just playing video games and stuff, but like they're like, oh shit, he's here.
Well, in a way, they were.
Yeah.
They were caught by their boss, so...
That's going to be a tough situation too, though, where you're like, hey, you can live here for 18 months, and you know that you're just kind of like a burnout piece of shit. You're never going to like do anything, that eventually that time just goes and they don't even have the wherewithal to try to like even half clean up when they know that dude's coming. Like they're so helpless that they just can't help themselves.
This is also when Corey tells him like, hey, so like this guy named Cyrus has just moved in and there's nothing that they could have done about it because he has a gun and he's nuts. And I guess he just like moved into Julian's house while he was gone, just some guy, and didn't kick those two out, I guess. So he just moved in with them.
Yeah, they're roommates.
Yeah.
Which makes me think, how many bedrooms are in that trailer park, or that trailer?
It's a double wide.
It is double wide. It also has like an interesting like porch part to it. At one point he's outside and you see like an almost like an L shape come out of it.
Well, you know, they don't have to worry about hurricanes or anything down there, so they can...
I've never been in a trailer, to be completely honest. I've never actually been in one. Have you guys?
So at my work, we have not after the auto show, we always have the RV and trailer show. And some of these you walk in, because they set them up all in our main hall.
Yep.
Some of them are nicer than my apartment. Like,
Oh yeah,
these-
some of them are like.
Oh, I've
these,
seen like
rich people.
I've seen cool RVs and stuff in my day, but I've never like walked into like an actual trailer that's like lived in as a home.
Yeah, never run as a home. I've been in like the one that they bring you in if they're going to be like, we're going to light this on fire and teach you how to get out of a smoke-filled room, or ones that are like offices
what
for
the fuck
like
do you
car
do in your
dealerships.
free time?
Yeah.
You forget how much Joe loves James Bond.
Yeah.
he goes
Go
to
to a
Bond
trailer
camp.
that they light on fire.
Well, his
It's like a
dad
thing
was
they
a
do for kids.
firefighter.
Yeah, there's a thing they do for
That's
kids.
true.
You go in there. It's like controlled. You're not in there and they're like, good fucking luck, buddy. Get
He
out
just
of
set
here.
a trailer full of children on fire.
Oxen for
In the parking lot of a fucking fire station, like, hey, whoever wants to get out, those are the ones who'll run the country next.
Okay, well, out of context, it's very confusing, Joe.
I apologize. In my head, it made total sense. As I said it out loud, I realized that was an odd sentence to have come out.
I've just been in one of those, you know.
Okay, it's either that or like an auto body shop, or not auto body shop, like a car dealership, right? Like a used car lot has like a mini trailer where like the guy sits and there's like just like a bathroom and an ashtray.
We from this information we find out about Cyrus, we do cut to him, and he has like a little, you know, thing with the camera too. So he's talking, and just to quote him, he goes, "Yeah, I moved into his trailer. Nice little spot. The way I see it, this fucking Julian guy, he lost his privileges when he went to the con college. You see, I'm the guy who owns the trailer now. I'm running the trailer park. And if that big, tough fucking guy comes running around here, throwing his little bit of weight around, well then, fuck off." My initial reaction the second he started speaking is, I fucking hate this guy.
They're
And
supposed to.
Yep.
but in a show where the acting isn't expected to be that good in general, he is exceptionally bad.
Yeah,
It felt like community theater, and like he was playing this fake generic tough guy.
I actually think
He's
that's where
like
he
Jay
comes
Muse in this scene. He acts like Jay Muse acts in the first Clerks when he has no idea like what acting is, you know. And I'm not knocking any of these people. I can't act. I'm not saying that they
It's
don't.
more like when your like uncle is telling you a story, and he's like, "So this tough guy walked around," and he's like just being It's like, just play
See,
a
I don't
tough
think
guy.
so, 'cause I think when an uncle says it, even if you're like, I don't believe him, he believes himself. I don't get that this guy believes what he's saying either,
Right.
though. It's just kind of like very by the numbers, like, and then a little bit of weight around. Like, it's almost phonetic.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable. His name's also, I think, Gerard Robichaud. He is like renowned as like the nicest dude in the world. Like everybody on this show loves working with this guy. He's apparently fun to work with, even though
So he
Again, not to
has-
jump ahead, but just a question: is he a recurring character later on?
Oh yeah, he goes
Yeah,
to the entire
sporadically,
series.
though.
Yeah, he's not
never
always there, but
there
he's
long.
there front to back.
Like a
Is
pop
he
up,
like-
and it's just like Cyrus. Like
Yeah.
you forgot about him because it's been so long.
Is he like I guess to like compare to another show? Like I was thinking of like Always Sunny. Is he like a Jiminy Cricket type of?
Sort of, yeah. That'd be
Yeah,
Is it like a couple times a year type of guy?
Yeah, but I mean, like towards the end, like in like the later seasons, he's in every episode. Like him and shit. What's the caveman's name?
Nick Kroll.
Shit. Fuck, I forget. Oh, Sam.
Sam.
It's kind of like
Sam.
a juxtaposition to the first season. Like they come back from jail and Cyrus is running the park again, and he's like in the whole season. So.
And yeah, so we cut back inside, and Julian tells the two that they let him down. They tell him there was nothing they could do. Like Cyrus killed a kid in reform school. He stole cars. He has a 9mm. And Lahey's afraid of him, and like so, like shit just changes. There was Cyrus came in, and that was it. There was really no stopping him. And they ask what he's gonna do, and he said he doesn't know yet. Julian, that is, doesn't know what he's gonna do yet. But in the meantime, what he does know is that those two need to start cleaning up. So he makes them start cleaning the house.
Yeah, I do appreciate that he's like at least it's an interesting like it's a straight story in that it's a power dynamic happening. But it's disguised under so many weird layers where like it's like, oh, it's a power dynamic of people in a small town, essentially, which is like a very standard story, but this is so fucking wild that it's like you forget what so when he says things like that, you're like, oh, I get what's happening here. He's like asserting his power again, but you just forget it because the next scene is like, this is Bubbles. You're like, what the fuck is happening with this show?
Well, I think the actual next scene is actually pretty weird in itself because that's when.
Oh, this is the you heavy metal dick scene, which was the other good laugh I got.
The convenience store. So yeah, Ricky walks into the store and he tells the kid behind the register that I'm either gonna rob you or you can just give me the stuff. And the kid's like, oh, you're Ricky, right? Yeah, you can have whatever you want. I don't care. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I understand Mr. Lahey did say earlier that, all the kids seem to like idolize these two, and also I guess the kid, like, what the fuck does he care, right? He just works at a convenience store. If he's being told he's either going to get robbed or you can give me the stuff, you're still getting robbed essentially, right?
This kid also becomes a very big part of the show.
I was going to say, is that Phil Collins' son?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's what I thought.
Jacob.
Yep.
And everybody here has smoked in the past or smokes still. So he bought 4 packs of smokes at a time.
We just got out of jail.
No, I get that, but like, if I go to the store to buy a cigarette, I'm trying to quit smoking currently. But if I go, I usually get like 3 packs at a time. So I only have to go every few days, right? Because I'm busy working and I don't end up at the store very often, right?
Less sunlight, less time you have to be outside.
But like we also, a bunch of us here have worked at convenience stores, right? And people would come in and just like every couple of days would buy a full carton and you'd be like, whoa, like this is pretty intense. So anybody here did you get any vibe from getting 4 packs of cigarettes? Did you think that was just like a couple of days worth?
I didn't think too much about the frequency at which he smoked. I just thought of his priorities and how dumb he is. Because the kid basically said, you can have whatever you want. And he asked for 4 packs of cigarettes and some flowers that were on the counter. And
Jay kind of nail on ahead that one. Yeah.
He doesn't have anywhere to like live. And like maybe he'd also want a sandwich or like something like, there's probably other things that he could have grabbed, like a drink.
Yeah, a cup of coffee, maybe.
All he wanted was 4 packs of cigarettes and some flowers that he saw on the counter.
Because all he wants to do is smoke and get fucked up.
Yeah,
he's not capable of multiple thoughts at once.
Yeah.
Well, also, too, you guys kind of alluded to it a little earlier in the episode that cigarettes are a sort of currency, too.
There's a lot of cigarette talk. As much as we've talked about it, there are times where it was brought up in this episode so far that we didn't bring up.
Which is another Clerks.
It's weird because it's the only time I really remember him getting cigarettes of his own. He's usually mooches them off people.
Well, he didn't buy these. He robbed them.
He robbed them.
Usually he'll just, Corey and Trevor, I'll be like, smokes, boys. And they'll just always give him their cigarettes. And a whole thing throughout the whole show.
As he's getting these cigarettes bagged up for him, this is when Cyrus actually walks into the store. He goes straight to the register and also asks for some smokes. But, obviously it wasn't his turn yet because Ricky was still being served, whether or not he was paying for the items or not. So now they get into a little back and forth because Cyrus kind of came in rude. And Cyrus is asking what the camera's doing there, but he was just interviewed like a second ago. So he's got to be somewhat aware that this camera's in the area, right?
I think that one could be. You could explain that one as being out of continuity. Like they
Could be,
They've kind of spliced that interview in
Yeah.
after they had met him.
Because when he asks, he's like, "None of your fucking business, actually." And you kind of get this like, "Oh, you don't know who the fuck I am." He's like, the name is Cyrus, and he tells Ricky, "I don't give a fuck who you are." And then that's Joe, the line you gave earlier, where he calls him a heavy metal dick because Cyrus is wearing like a leather jacket. And
It doesn't look very heavy metal though.
No,
I think
not
that makes
at
it
all.
funnier.
No.
Yeah. And Cyrus tells Ricky, "Why don't you go back to the bowling alley you came from, Helmet Head?" And I guess to talk about, I guess we didn't really get into like his look too much, but he does have that kind of like loud print shirt and the like pompadour hairstyle. So has that, I don't know, they come from like, the two of them, I guess, kind of come from the same world, like misplaced, like, I guess in a way, like this modified 50s look that they both are channeling from.
Except track pants, so he kind of looks like what Honky Tonk Man looks like now, where he's got like the button-up shirt and the big pompadour, that he's just kind of out of shape with track pants on.
And it kind of ends with just Ricky telling him like, "You're lucky I'm on probation," and they both kind of leave. Cyrus also didn't pay for his order either and tells the kid to fuck off.
Cyrus legitimately robbed the store, whereas Ricky was gifted.
Yeah, at least
the,
Ricky was more
the
polite
stuff.
about it.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say he was gifted. I would just say that robbery
No, he was gifted.
made
No, he was
easier.
gifted.
No, well, he said, "I'm either going to rob you or you're going to give me this stuff." So you're still
guy-
robbing him.
No, because the guy didn't say no, and he took it forcefully. The act of robbery would be forcefully taking something.
I think if you were in court right now for this and you were acting as your own lawyer, you'd be in jail in like 2.5 minutes, Cordo. I don't think you have the case you think you have here.
No, that's true. I'm just trying to say that it's trying to paint Ricky as a dickhead, but a dickhead for good. Quote, I'm using air quotes here, but like a superhero dickhead versus a villainous dickhead.
A different level of aggression.
Sure, that's a better way of putting it.
Different
Ricky, I guess to explain it the way you're saying it is, Ricky is also not like a hero by any means, but he does not have any desire to harm someone to get what he wants.
Yeah, well,
He still
Ricky's-
wants to get what he wants and doesn't care if it's like, a savory way to do it, but he would prefer to not choose violence or something where Cyrus walks in, using those antics to get what he wants right away.
Yeah, I mean, Ricky and the gang do eventually become like the anti-heroes, like because they're not your atypical, what you would think of as like main characters, but this is just the beginnings of that, the seeds of that starting to plant,
Got it.
the germination, if you will.
And after that, we get this new scene. It's an aerial shot of like a different part of town with this like generic kind of hip hop beat playing. And we meet J-Roc and Tyrone with two other guys who they don't have their names ever listed on screen. So I assume they're not important or don't really come into play later.
No.
No, the two you named are the ones that matter.
And J-Roc looked like one of those like the original rappers from the Nation of Domination. Do you remember them?
Wolfie D and
I was gonna say it's
DJ
Wolfie D.
Ice.
All right, DJ Ice. I couldn't remember that one. I remember Wolfie D.
It's something Ice. It's JC Ice.
I don't know. I remember Wolfie D.
Shit. I don't know. Wolfie D always stands out.
Yeah.
It's something Ice. I'm positive about
Yeah.
the Ice part.
Oh, Vanilla.
No.
And
I actually think he looks just like Dexter Holland from The Offspring.
okay.
Yeah, I definitely get that vibe.
If
Yeah,
he was a white rapper. Yes, Gordo?
Hold on.
JC Ice Wolfie.
Yeah.
Ice Wolfie D.
What was it?
The JC Ice and Wolfie D.
Okay.
JC Ice and Wolfie D.
And J-Roc, he's got like an upside down visor, oversized, open flannel, baggy pants. He walks with a
One of my
cane.
favorite, but it's like a medical cane. It's not
Yeah,
even like
it's
a
like-
pimp cane.
Yeah. So that was my thing. I didn't know if that came into play later. I didn't know if he was someone who actually needed a cane to walk or if he did it to look cool like it was a pimp cane.
No, he did it to
That's
look
exactly
cool
what it
'cause
is.
it's a
He
pimp
thinks he
game.
looks
Yeah.
cool.
Okay. But yeah, it was like the candy cane shaped cane. Like
Yeah, like an old man cane.
Yeah.
An orthopedic cane.
Right, exactly.
And he's like one of the funniest characters in this whole show.
You see all 4 of them walk up to Julian, and they're all on the phone at the same time as they walk up, and it's kind of awkward because they're all just kind of like doing this, like, all right, pretend you're all on the phone together, or not together, but all at the same time, and then they all give him daps and stuff one at a time, and they're all, embracing Julian. And one of the kids in the back, I'm not sure if it looked like he didn't know what he was supposed to be doing. So like when it went away from him and Julian's talking to like J-Roc and stuff, the kid in the back, if you notice, he puts the phone back to his head for a second and then he drops it and he's like looking around. Like they gave him like no instruction. The kid was just like floundering during this part of the scene.
I didn't notice that, but that's a good eye. I'm going to have to go back and watch that because that sounds exactly on par.
I do love people in the background who don't know what to do. It's like the kid grabbing his dick at the end of Back to the Future or whatever. They're just like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here. Like forever, people just watch it and be like, all right, man.
Classic Jules.
I didn't know how like a lot of the show is casted. If it was just, especially because this is obviously early on, I didn't know if it was just friends or people nearby that they were just like, hey, just jump in here.
The interesting thing about this show is like it's so community access that half the characters you see on screen are holding boom mics and doing shit when they're not on screen. Like they used everybody in all different facets for the filming of this for a long time too.
I think one of the coolest things about this is the 0.1% where people say like, we could get together and make a TV show. It would be sweet. It'd be funny. People would like it.
Yes.
And it never works, but this one did. And I'm happy when it does work for somebody, right? Like, good for you guys.
We can get together and make a podcast. We'll talk about old TV shows.
Yeah, we're the 0.1% of old sitcom TV podcasts that have worked. I'm really proud of all of us.
I would say, for the people who do what we're doing specifically, we got to be in the upper tier, right? Because I don't know
pilot
a lot of
episodes.
Yeah,
but I don't know any other pilot episode podcasts.
I'd come across a couple, but it looks like we're to give ourselves a quick pat on the back. I think we're starting to pull away from the pack with those. But in any
Suck
event,
it, bitches.
So
unknown bitches, take that. Bitches leave.
Yeah. So J-Roc and Tyrone are telling Julian that they have bad news, and they start to talk about Cyrus and how he's controlling all the liquor and selling all the dope now, and now Julian isn't the king of the park anymore. To go back a half a second, controlling the liquor? I mean, this is not bootleg times, right? Like, how is he in charge of the liquor distribution going on?
That's a good question. I don't know.
What I thought about it was like, imagine you go and buy, you always have a ton of booze on you, right, at your house. People who don't want to leave the park, people who it's past beer o'clock.
That's essentially what it probably is, yeah.
Right, so you can be like, hey, I've got whiskey, I've got beer, what do you want, right? And then you control your pricing for it, or you can trade it for people for favors later. I imagine it's more of a like.
Also,
it seems like a lot of people don't drive or don't leave.
That too, yeah.
Yeah, they're also living in a trailer park too, so I mean, they're not like very well off, where they'll just go down to the store and buy smokes or buy.
And probably some of them don't
liquor.
have cars.
Exactly.
But
right, and we don't know how far they are from the nearest store, right? Like, I don't drive, but it's 5 minutes to walk to a liquor store in either direction. Right.
And they also don't have they're liquor stores, but I don't know if this is all of Canada or just that part of Canada. They're called LCs. They say it a lot during the show, like, hey, Randy, let's go hit the LC. And it's the liquor cabinet. The liquor cabinet. But all the liquor sales are run by the government there. So like you have to go
to a few of them.
The government run store, maybe. Yeah. So maybe the prices are higher because of that. Who knows?
It's almost like, you know how for a regional reference, if you go to like the liquor store in New Hampshire that's
right,
state
yes,
run,
exactly. Yeah.
It's like that, but you can buy everything. You can get beer and everything too. So when we were in like Newfoundland and PEI a couple years ago, you just go to these like really nice stores that also sell booze. It's much cleaner and nicer. It's not like your like neighborhood liquor store here.
So the LC, according to Urban Dictionary, is slang for a liquor store. In Canada, most liquor stores are run by the government. This is known as the Liquor Commission. So the context is, hey man, let's go to the LC and get a 6-pack.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before. We've all been to Canada, right? All 5 of us. So
No,
we've all
thanks
seen
for bringing it up again.
Why don't you guys come on up? We'll take the ferry. We'll go to Nova Scotia. We can tour the.
I actually don't think I'm allowed in Canada.
They're probably not going to let you
That
in.
might be true. Yeah.
I actually that's not even like a joke. I actually don't think I'm allowed in Canada.
Hello, this is Mr. Burns. I don't know who Gordo is.
Joe, I mean, Joe, I know
Rightfully
you're a bit north of us now, but you're not northern Maine. You still have quite a hike to get there, right?
No, not for Nova Scotia. That's what we're saying. It's so close because it's across the water.
Because it juts out off the water, so you could get up.
Oh, okay.
So like where Nova Scotia is super close to like near you leave from Portland. I think it's like 2 hours. I mean, it's still a ferry for 2 hours, but
Oh, cool.
the opposite
expired.
of that,
I couldn't
drive
go if
to
I
Canada
wanted to right now.
from my house still takes about 6 hours. We did it a couple years ago, and it's still a pretty long hike. You're still in the car forever to get there, but the ferry to go to like Halifax is super quick.
Yeah, later on in the series, they do things between here and Maine a lot.
So, and just to close this out, Julian tells them that, he's back now and he's not really worried about Cyrus. And that kind of closes out that scene. And then we go to another Ricky interview where he's sitting at the bottom of his slide having a cigarette, talking about how he hasn't seen his daughter Trinity or Lucy since he went to jail. At this point, Lucy, I assume, is his girlfriend or wife because they didn't really say it that. All we knew is that's
baby
Trinity's mom,
mama.
right?
Baby
Right.
mama.
He said that they didn't have time to visit him when he was in jail. He was there for 18 months. They didn't have time to go visit him once.
They do like dropping that hint, right? That obviously she just wants a break from like a clean break.
And he was not sure. I mentioned this earlier. He wasn't really sure how old she was, either 7 or 8. But does go on to say, it's a long time to not see your daughter or the woman you love, I guess. Like, so he says he loves her, kind of. And then we cut to Julian meeting up with Bubbles. This is the first time we see Bubbles. We brought him up earlier. Can any of you best describe Bubbles to me, watching him for the first time? And I know this character, I think, would probably come before it, but he reminds me a lot of Stephen Root in Dodgeball.
Or also Stephen Root in Office Space.
Yeah.
If we're going Stephen Root.
Wait, who are you talking about?
Bubbles.
Oh, yeah, good call. I could see that.
He also, for a sitcom reference, the episode of Seinfeld where Jerry has to wear glasses because he has to keep a lie going. So he puts on a pair of giant, way too strong for him glasses. It was a very big parallel to that. This character also, like, not knowing much about this show, this is what I think of. If you put him, before I watched the episode, having never seen it before, if you said, what is Trailer Park Boys? This dude's face was what I saw first. Like, this character seems pretty present in culture.
Yeah, and I don't
You
think...
guys would love Bubbles. He's a big wrestling fan.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah,
he
he
plays
is.
the green bastard when he gets into wrestling mode, and he just wears this green suit and body slams Corey and Trevor. But I don't think they intended...
See, I want to see that. Where was that episode?
I know.
Yeah.
Wait, down the line. But I don't
Also a
think
big
they
Rush
intended this character to be as a big part of the show as he becomes. I think Mike Smith taking over and like really developing the character is what kind of propelled him into being a more prevalent part of the show.
The sort of
Well, he
breakout
was-
star they didn't expect.
Right.
Well, he was the audio engineer on the show, if I'm correct.
Yeah, he was some sort of production.
I think he's the audio engineer for the entire show, and that's like you guys said earlier. He kind of came in and was giving the guy points.
I
But
guess it makes sense, too, if he's a professional musician, right?
And there's other shows where there's similar cases. I mentioned Jiminy Cricket earlier, right? He's like a writer.
Is it Jiminy Cricket or are you going
Rickety
to Pinocchio?
Cricket.
It's Rickety Cricket,
Rickety
right?
Cricket. Jeez, yeah, I messed it
Jiminy
up earlier.
Cricket.
Why didn't you correct me the first time? I would've
Because
done it
at
again.
first I was
did.
like, fuck, am I wrong? And then you
Yeah.
said it the second time in my head. I was like,
Jiminy
okay, he's wrong.
Cricket
I
is
know
from
it
Disney, right?
Yeah, yeah.
yes, he is.
Okay,
At
Rickety
We should have
Cricket.
let it go.
Jay
least he
Pedo?
didn't call him.
Actually, that sounds
Jiminy
way worse.
Don't like that at all.
Oh, it's just Cannoli Joe and Jay Pedo. Holy shit. Yeah, take that. After years, I finally get my revenge.
Mr. Big Pot J Pedo over there.
Jay Pedo with his pants down at the urinal.
God.
Ooh.
Classic.
So in any event, Bubbles goes on to talk about Cyrus and how he tried to stop him from moving into Julian's trailer, but he kept sticking his gun in his face. And it cuts to an interview of Cyrus showing his gun and talking about it and like how his dad gave it to him when he was a kid and that had seen a lot of action. Again, I hate this guy. I'm not hating him for the right reasons.
I know what you mean. Yeah. He's
too...
goes...
You know what it reminded me of? It's when we did the IT crowd, the boss.
Yeah.
He was too fake. It was like you're playing like it's a play and not a television show, and it takes me out when you're that much of a character.
Well, you know what I think maybe does it is it's like this guy doesn't swear in real life. You know what I mean? And now he's being, it's in the script to do so, and he's just not comfortable being that kind of guy. Yet, anyways, so and it just shines through. Like I know what
part
you mean,
of casting, though.
Well, the casting though is people who are around.
Yeah,
exactly.
They got who they could for their public access show.
Yeah,
I'm with you, Nick. Though I think this is very much like her boob felt like a bag of sand scenario, where she like doesn't know what to say, and like that just comes out.
And so like Bubbles and Julian go on for another minute or so. But ultimately, what's being said is that no one likes Cyrus, and Julian is going to tell him that he's going to leave tonight. And for Bubbles to like kind of get the word out that he's going to be doing that. This whole scene felt 100% improvised. The way that they were talking and reacting, and Julian kind of cracked a couple times on this one. It felt like the whole scene was improvised. I don't know if you guys picked up on that watching it.
I could see it. A lot of this show kind of feels that way. I mean, maybe
a ton of this show is improvised, like more than any show you'll ever see. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like there's not a script as much as there's an outline.
Yeah, as long as they like, anytime they do like, this is an example, but if they do like big like group things with like the park, a lot of it is just work off each other, all improvisation.
Right. And then that worked really well. And look at every Christopher Guest movie, right? Those movies are all amazing, and it's pretty much just like 95% improvised.
The next scene, we see like Cyrus drive up in this red muscle car. I didn't pick up on what kind of car it was. Any of you guys better with cars than me?
I thought it was a Camaro.
I wasn't Cyrus's Thunderbird.
Yeah.
Cyrus is a Corvette.
It's a Corvette?
Yeah.
Corvette.
All right, so
Stingray, I think.
So he drives up to Ricky,
Corvette.
and it's Cyrus who's now robbing him of the cigarettes that he just got from the store, which didn't he also just get cigarettes? I don't understand why he drove up to Ricky and holds him up at gunpoint to get more cigarettes.
I think it's
He's
establishing
cigarettes.
Dominance. The other option would be peeing on him.
Yeah,
But
I guess
also,
if you
it's
only
not
have
that-
two options, it's either pee on him or steal his cigarettes.
Dog eat
But
dog,
everybody sort
baby.
of gets along in this scene where Ricky's like, look, I've got 4, you can have 2. And then the other dude's like, yeah, I'll take 2. Like, he's not like, give me all of them. Like, they come to a weird understanding where they're like, I've got 4, you can have. That's almost sweet in a way.
Yeah. Like, during that whole thing, too, Ricky's like, what are you doing? There's cameras here, and you have a gun out. And Cyrus really didn't care at all about that. And that's when they haggled with the 2-packs. After that, Ricky's going to finally go and visit Lucy and his daughter with those flowers that he got as part of the robbery in hand. And as he gets to the door, he's being greeted by Sarah, who's Lucy's roommate and friend, who clearly hates him and is trying to cover up and say that Lucy's not there and that, you know, while he's been in jail, I've been helping her pay for the bills and stuff. I thought it was going to be revealed that the two of them were together now.
Yeah, that seemed like the obvious. I either thought they were going to be a couple, or it was going to be revealed that that was the sister, which made more sense to me for a sitcom too. Where like the reason she'd hate him so much is because it's, you left my sister, you went to jail, I'm helping her raise my niece.
Oh, it's the Andorra, the angry in-law.
I thought for sure it was going to be like, you know, like me and Lucy are together now. I was waiting for that line and it didn't happen. But during that whole exchange, even though he's being told that she's not there and that she went to the park with their daughter, he can hear her in the background. So he finally is like, you know, manages to make his way back there. And that's when we see Lucy, who's, you know, looks about as classy as someone who would have a child with Ricky could look.
I wrote in my notes here, though, kind of hot question mark. So you
Yeah.
saying that now? I'm
She's
like,
a
She's a
dime.
smoke show.
okay, so
like-
I wasn't wrong there. Okay.
No,
I have
you
that- I have that
don't
written down
get
too.
to see her that well in this episode with the bad early cameras and stuff,
Yep.
and a lot of the views are far back. She's a good looking gal.
Yeah, she is.
And So the show actually goes off the air for a while, and like then it comes back after like the time skip we mentioned earlier. And some of them it didn't affect. She's one that it very much did.
Yeah.
She aged a lot in the time skip.
She's also a
Still looks
captain
good though.
in the Royal Canadian Air Force in real life.
Oh.
Really?
Yeah, throughout this whole thing.
Yeah,
And
she's
you also see her titties in the movie.
okay.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Mr. Skin.
Just
Yeah, so like here she's a blonde girl. She's kind of has like a half shirt on, like a black kind of sports bra type shirt, right? But yeah, no, she's an attractive girl, much more attractive, I guess, than you would assume someone like Ricky would land, especially.
That honky tonk man would be dating.
But just, yeah, within this world, yeah, she doesn't, I mean, they do a good job of kind of trashing her up a little bit, but she doesn't quite fit in with the rest of the cast.
she's got that Peggy Bundy like turned up to 10 look. Like
Yeah, I can see a Peggy vibe there. Yeah.
And when he sees her, what he says is like, "Holy shit, you look good." And like, then they hug. It was like a really weird long embrace hug. I thought the way they were going to go with it was because she's like trashy and he's trashy. He was just like, he was going to be like, "Holy shit, you look good." And they were just going to start making out immediately. That's what I was expecting to happen. But instead it was just this really big hug and it cut from there.
it's like it's hard to go into without going into, but I mean she does love him, but he's so unreliable.
Well, yeah, I think that's kind of where the next scene goes because now we're in the kitchen and they're going back and forth with the fridge door, which I thought was weird.
He's trying to eat from it.
Right, yeah. So she's shutting the door on him.
She doesn't
And-
seem to care until he says, "I'm gonna be sleeping here anyway."
No,
when she tries to
that's what I was
close
trying
the
to figure
door.
out. So I've said this in the past. So I usually will try to pull up a transcript so I can like, if I think I'm missing words, I'll check on what it says and copy paste if I need quotes. What that said was, "Don't worry, I'm not going to be sleeping here. Not going to be sleeping here."
Oh, really?
Oh.
I could have
Oh,
sworn
yeah.
he said, "I'm gonna be sleeping here all the time anyway."
No. So like that's why I was like, did I hear that right? And then, cause she says like, you know, "Trinity and I can't have you coming in and out of our lives like this. Just go stay with Ray." I thought it was because he said he wasn't staying. Like, "Oh, don't worry, I'm not like staying or anything." So I thought maybe that was her being like, "Then you need to leave. If you're not going to like stay with us, then you have to leave."
I thought he was staying with Julian. I thought that was his plan.
That was his plan before they got out of jail, and he heard that he doesn't want to be friends with him anymore.
Yeah. His
Yeah, so
plan
now
seems
he's
to be,
floundering for like a place
yeah,
to
it's like an
stay.
ever evolving plan right now. Yeah.
Well, yeah, so he's definitely trying to play the, "Well, you know, I'm not going to stay here." "Oh, no, you could stay here. It's been so long" line.
That's possible.
Also, she could not say this line. She had one line to deliver here and she could not get it out. And I'm like, is there some sort of a weird rule with this show that like only fans know that everything has to be done in one take? Because I don't know why they use that version, that cut of her trying to deliver the line. She goes like, she really struggles to say it. And it was really uncomfortable and I don't know why they used it.
That probably was the best take.
I think it's really good acting because it hurts her to throw him out. So she's dealing with the pain in her heart of saying, "No, Ricky, you have to go. You cannot do this."
What I think it is the pain of her trying to deliver a line that she couldn't get out. Again, I feel like I thought you guys were all going to like jump in and agree like that was so bad, but apparently
I agree. No, I agree.
Yeah.
I'll say they get better. Not so much her.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I will say for me, instead of jumping in or whatever, it's just that I think that like 15 to 20 minutes into the episode, you sort of dull towards it because everybody's like
your
it almost becomes
expectations
on
of the
purpose.
acting is like, yeah, you're not expecting like
You're
Emmy
immersed.
award winning performances. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Also,
you're
at
immersed.
minute 3, you're noticing it. Minute 17, you're kind of just like, okay, well, I get that this was what this is, and you sort of just roll with it.
You guys gave us a little backstory with her. Do you guys know, is there a reason, like, was she also doing acting like in that area?
I don't think so. I think it was just like they knew her and
Yeah, because I
you know.
couldn't figure out like if she can't act and she has a legit other career in the military going on, why is she in the show, especially if she never gets better at it?
Also, interesting story about her. Towards the end of the series, she does leave the series. And it's because apparently her and Mike Smith, the guy who plays Bubbles, never really got along. And then one day, Mike Smith got some sort of domestic issue against him. She used that to get out of her contract on the show. And it turns out that the domestic issue was literally just him and his wife arguing loudly. Like, nothing ever actually happened. It was just like a loud argument, and the cops got called, and it got put in the paper because he was of some sort of notoriety. And she used that as a way to get out of the show, because I think she was contractually obligated. She didn't like working with him. She was kind of over the show, and she saw that and just jumped on it and kind of dragged his name through the dirt in the process, which seemed kind of shitty because, I mean, it was just an argument and like nothing.
Total Lucy move.
Yeah, exactly. It was like pretty close to the actual character, but it was just an interesting tidbit about her character.
You guys think that, like, if he had the domestic and, like, the cops come, he just, like, puts on the bubbles attire?
Yeah, I guess if he's in Nova Scotia when it happens, he'd probably get out of it.
He's probably a celebrity, yeah. I
just don't want to make a joke about a domestic assault, so I'm not
I know.
shit about that.
It's interesting to me, though, because, like, you would think, and I don't know enough about the timeline or the circumstances, but for her to get out of her contract if they never got along, I assume she's not on her first contract at this point because the show had such a run. So if she's there from day one and had been there for a while, she probably had signed a couple at that point. So it's weird that there was all of a sudden this breaking point where she needed to get out that bad and found any excuse to get out, because there were opportunities to just leave, but she re-signed different contracts, I would assume. But we don't need to delve too into that and change the tone of the show, so we can like move past it a little bit.
You know, is this where they just notify you that his dad's a drunk, but we're not going to meet him now? Which is like the one moment of the show where they're
pulls
like,
up to his house, and there's
there
just
are
like
more
loud
characters,
music.
but you're not going to see these ones.
There was a lot, like loud music playing, and from the inside of the house when he pulled up. And just from that alone, he's like, oh, this is my dad's place. It sounds like he's drunk again. So the best thing to do when he's drunk is just stay away. I'd rather sleep in the playground tonight.
Yeah, his dad is...
He's always drunk, so it's weird that that's an excuse.
Yeah, and his dad is like one of the main producers on the show, the guy Barry Dunn. So I assume he was probably just busy with the actual show at this point, and that's why you don't get to see him right away.
Okay.
I like this, though, because we mentioned in the beginning of the episode that they're just introducing you to so many people that I think there's like a good less is more here, where it's like you remember that his dad is drunk and you never met him, so it builds anticipation to meet him later. But you
I'd rather the
one more person.
I didn't know if that was something that they wait for a payoff, like he was going to be like the unseen character for like the whole season. That
also, there are
reference him
already a ton of characters, so I don't hate that they didn't. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even if this was an hour-long pilot instead of a half-an-hour-long pilot, like if they introduced more people, I feel like you lose some of the people.
It'd be
right?
overwhelming,
like,
yeah.
J-Roc, I think, is somebody where you start like forgetting people because there's so many you get thrown at you right away.
Right. And then from there we cut to Lahey and Randy, who were using their radios to communicate with each other, even though they're about 15 feet apart. Looks like Randy's inspecting someone's yard or something. I couldn't see exactly.
They're investigating some sort of malfeasance.
And Lahey then tells the camera that he has to do something he hates doing. He's going to have to get the cops involved because there's a potential shootout that could be happening.
Involve
tonight.
the heavies.
The heavies. Yep. Yeah, I didn't get what Randy was inspecting either. I didn't know if you guys had a perspective on that.
No, I think they were just trying to get them on, like we needed to start with something. There's a later time, we'll talk about it later, when Cyrus drives up to them and they're just like, we're cleaning a park. And there was no reason to start the scene. They're just trying to get them on camera to set up what's about to happen. And then Randy says, that he thinks it's unfair because Julian's on probation and he could go back to jail for a really long time. Lahey's kind of thing back is like, yeah, Julian is, but Cyrus isn't, and Cyrus will kill me. You got any better ideas? If not, put your shirt on and shut up.
I do love that he tells him to put his shirt on because I imagine you guys can jump ahead. Is he usually shirtless for the majority of the show?
Always
shirtless.
shirtless.
Okay, so it is nice to at least reference that somebody's bothered by it.
Yeah.
I was a little confused here because I would argue that Cyrus is more likely to kill you if he finds out you got the cops involved, not if you don't get the cops involved. So it's a very backwards like, hey, I don't think you should get the cops involved. He's like, well, Cyrus could kill me. He's like, yeah, if he finds this out, which comes into play very soon after. But even as they're saying it, I'm like, this doesn't make sense. This is backwards logic.
Yeah, and it would send away the one person that can protect them in Julian.
And we get a Randy interview where he talks about how he doesn't agree with the calling of the cops thing. And he looks at the trailer park as a family and thinks that they should be able to kind of work out things internally. I will say in this moment, in this kind of scene, for whatever reason, I was like, this I think is my favorite character right now is Randy. There was like an innocence to him.
The nicknames some of these people give Randy are like my favorite parts of the show. At one point, J-Roc calls Lahey and Randy Starsky and Gut. And it fucking killed me.
I'm glad you actually brought him up because J-Roc and Tyrone are the next people we see. It's an interview with them. And essentially they're just saying, like around here, they're a unit. And long story short is their whole interview is saying that, the trailer park guys are together, they're all together. And, if you're an outsider, you're an outsider, but they're all, together. I don't even want to try to quote J-Roc because I would do it no justice to just transcribe it. Just a lot of motherfuckers are being said at this point.
Can you quote it, but in Bobcat Goldthwait's voice?
Unfortunately, I cannot. If I send it to you, can you quote it in the late great
Gilbert Godfrey?
Godfrey's voice?
R.I.P.
Gilbert.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
It was a tough one. Yeah.
And then as I try to memorialize the man, forget his name in that moment. Yeah.
Gibby Gotti.
But it's essentially like they got to stick together like family, and it ends with your jock don't stick together, but people stick together. It was a weird, I don't know. They're weird characters. J-Roc's a very weird character, so to try to explain the things he's saying without emulating it is very difficult.
And their group is called the Rock Pile, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. I thought so. I thought they were called the Rock Pile, which I did enjoy. Just as one of my favorite bands is called Rock Pile. When I saw they were called Rock Pile, I was like, oh, I didn't realize that. I don't think they say it in the episode.
And then, as I touched on earlier, now we cut to Cyrus driving up to Randy and Lahey because he just heard that they were going to call the cops. And I was like, I guess news travels quickly here. And Cyrus says that, he makes the decisions around here. When Randy tells him to back off, Cyrus says, take your hands off me, Sasquatch, which I thought that was like one line from him I really did like.
I will say, if I didn't enjoy Cyrus in the first half of the episode, I really enjoy him in the last half of it. The confrontation with Ricky, was it Julian? Who's
Julian.
Sorry,
My stuff.
Yeah, this whole scene here with the park authority people is super funny.
Cyrus then goes on and let it be known that if the cops do get involved, he's going to have to use his gun. And he makes Randy apologize to him and then makes him kiss his hand.
This is where I loved him. Kisses his hand and tells him to fuck off. So
and every time Cyrus speaks at this point, every time he puts his gun up to Randy, he only does it while he's actually speaking. And then when he's done, puts his hand back down. So he just keeps raising his hand up and down with the gun instead of just holding it at him the whole time, which I assume was done intentionally for comedic purposes. But it was a little weird, but I see why it was done.
All these people live a much harder life than you think, or are harder in life than you think, because no one seems as affected by the gun as I'd like to think I would be, right? If someone was just talking like this to me with waving the gun around, I'd be like, whoa, 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 everyone chill the fuck out.
And it's weird because people hunt for their food where you live.
That's true.
Well, they are affected by the gun. They let him take over the fucking park.
Right, but nobody's running away from him ever. People are around him and understand that he has a gun. Everyone's like, no, he's scary. He has a gun. But no one rightfully runs away from him or tries to super avoid him. They let him walk up to him with the gun out constantly, and no one's putting him away.
Shot in the back.
Somebody was coming up to you with the gun. Would you run away from them in hope if they were coming up to you specifically? Think about this. To come and harass you or whatever, you're not going to run away because they're just going to shoot you.
No, I'd beat the shit out of them because I'm super tough.
That's right.
Yep.
Also, Cyrus drives off, and it should be noted every time he drives, it's the same generic
same
kind of
song.
50s doo-wop beat. Is that a thing?
It's an actual song, and I can tell you what it is. I had it somewhere. Hold on. You can keep talking. It's going to take.
Oh, it's an actual song.
It's an actual song. Yeah.
I was under the assumption that it was a generic free use song that was meant to sound like doo-wop-y music.
This whole scene reminds me of when he gets in the car and plays the same song. It reminds me very much of later era Red Dwarf, when they would interject weird characters and they would always have a quirk like that.
It's a song called "I'm Old, You're Young" by Rick Jeffrey.
Okay,
and it's the only song that plays in his car for 7 seasons straight.
By the rights to one song, you better use it.
Stuck in the tape deck. So now we're here, right? This is going to be the big standoff between Cyrus and Julian. And Cyrus pulls up, and all these kids in the neighborhood are like slowly walking over to watch it. But for this big gunfight standoff, they're all just kind of quietly like walking over. Like it was very strange to me watching it happen. No one's like really reacting to it. And at some point, I think a glass gets thrown at Mr. Lahey's car. Did I see that correctly? Is that what happened?
Yeah,
It was a bottle.
It
There's
was a
kids
bottle.
that
Somebody's
ride
being a
around
bottle.
on bikes and just throw bottles at people. They were
Okay.
mentioned earlier, but this is the first time you kind of see it.
The bottle kids
right.
are prevalent.
All right.
Goddamn Canada Goose.
And then, so they exchange some words about how, like, one of them is going to have to move. And Julian kind of flags the cameraman to follow him. And then you just cut to Julian throwing Cyrus's stuff out of the window. And Cyrus is going like,
love
hey,
this
that's my
reaction.
shit. Hey, that's my shit.
He doesn't do anything, and then all the neighbors steal all of it immediately.
That's what I love.
Yeah,
the
that's the
second
best
it
part.
hits the ground,
Yeah.
they all just pounce and steal it.
Yeah, it's like a bunch of rats if, like, food hit the ground.
It's just like a CRT TV and a bunch of porn videotapes.
Yeah, well, it's like, this guy's a fucking gun, and he pulls it out every 2 seconds at everyone. And then this guy just starts throwing his shit out the door, and he's just like, hey, that's my shit. Like, so I guess you're starting to see cracks in the character, right? This is probably giving you
he's all talk.
exactly. And then it cuts to, like, Julian back outside, and the two are face to face. This is, yeah, Joe, you touched on it. Cyrus says that now he wants a new TV in a VCR, and he wants, like, his porn tapes replaced because those were, like, the creme de la creme. I can only imagine what kind of porn he's watching. Do we take
Greaser
guesses?
porn.
In 2001, I feel like the porn he's watching is the porn that we would get in 2001, which is like when you just stick your hand around the door in the video store and grab whatever you can to steal it, and then by hook or by crook or by luck,
I
you get what
assume
you
that
get.
he's watching Beetlejuism.
Oh, well,
Right.
starring Nikki Sickie? Of course he's watching Beetlejuice.
I feel like, yeah, early 2000s porn, that's all, like, heavily numbered.
Oh
Like-
yeah, that's like bust a nut in grandma's butt, like 69.
It's like oral consumption's 12.
Yeah.
No, I feel like his level of class, it would be like Girls Gone Wild, volume like 6.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like it's not something funny like Gordo or trying to make a pun. It's just like Beaver Patrol 7. Like it's not something that's like super.
I like, I do like that.
Patrol.
I don't know if that's, I mean, I don't know what's going on in, like, the videotape world of porn and, like, that kind of stuff, but I like the idea,
Sure you don't.
especially that I don't buy porn. I don't think anyone, well, plenty of people do. It's like $1 billion industry. But I think it's funny to me that, like, these franchises will have, like, Anal Adventures 72, and it's like, we got to keep the franchise rolling. Like, if we don't
Like,
keep this
what
name on
completist
it,
is out
I
there
didn't even
being
see,
like,
see 1 to 71.
it's just like the idea that you need to keep that name attached to it. Like, the content isn't what matters. It's the name attached to it is what's going to get people going.
but like you're watching them like the Rambo movies or something. Be like, yeah, I don't know. By Rambo 4, it really doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. They're not even doing anal anymore by the time they got to 70 something.
Well, in every franchise, they eventually go to space.
That's true.
It's true.
True.
And yeah, so Julian tells him, he wants him out of the trailer park. Cyrus tells him that, he provides a service to these people and asks for a raise of hands, like who needs his dope. And then you just kind of get these awkward shots of all the people who are not actors just standing there like they must have just said, don't do anything. We're just going to tape you. So they're all kind of sitting there. And J-Roc and Tyrone step up to kind of let everyone know that they also sell and they're open for business. So now Cyrus pulls out his gun and he tells Julian that he's not leaving. And he tells him he's not afraid to use his gun. And Julian's like, I think you are afraid. My brain tells my finger to pull the trigger and boom, happens just like that. And then Julian grabs the gun, puts it against him himself, while Cyrus is holding it and says, let me talk to your brain then. Hey, Cyrus's brain pulled the trigger. So pretty tough guy move right there.
And he cocks it too.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
That's
And,
one of those moves where you're like, it would be amazing to pull that move off and to back the person down. But it's also the worst if the last memory you ever have as a living person is that quarter of a second where you hear like the clicking happen and you're like, oh no, fuck that, I went too far. Like I didn't think they were going to do it. I judged wrong.
At that point, Julian's learned how to read him, and
Yeah.
he's a very good judge of character throughout the series.
See, so this was a question I had. Even having seen this show, the way Julian reacts to Cyrus kind of makes me think that this isn't the first time he's met Cyrus. Like, do you think maybe Julian knew who Cyrus was even before this?
I think
I
he
don't
knew
know.
his type. I don't think he knew
Yeah,
him per se.
I think Ferg's right. I think it's more
Yeah.
like he knows roughly who he is. Because
I
no
was
one
thinking
challenges him.
I can also see them having spent time in jail together too, though, because
That's what
they're
I
from the
was gonna
same
say.
place, and I imagine they're going to the same jail, right?
He never brings up like, oh, I know who this guy is. There's no talk of that. I think again, he knows
That's
the type
true.
of guy. All you hear about Cyrus is stories about the things he's done, but no one's ever seen it. So it's all kind of folklore. So I think he's just calling him out because no one's ever actually called him out. And then I like that once it's revealed to kind of everyone there that Cyrus is kind of a fraud and he's not going to actually do anything, you just hear someone yell, "Cyrus, you fucking dick," from like, in the crowd. And like Cyrus kind of then points the gun out to the crowd and a bunch of people duck, but that's when Julian is able to get the gun from him with no struggle. He just basically just grabs it and takes it from him. Cyrus doesn't even like attempt to like pull back or stop him from grabbing the gun.
That's another low-key, like, pimp move, because he's showing, I could have taken this at any time, and I let you fucking expose yourself.
Yeah. And so Cyrus just kind of walks off after that. He's like, I didn't want to be here anyways. Like, forget this place.
It was
And-
very anticlimactic.
Yeah, it just kind of ends. He just walks off. And Mr. Lahey then thanks Julian for getting rid of Cyrus. And he tells him, now if you could just straighten out Ricky, we'd be all set. And then it kind of pans out and you just see everyone hugging or shaking his hand, like to thank Julian, like one at a time. And it's kind of awkward because,
Lots of
again,
gaps.
it's a lot of just, again, non-actors that don't know what they should be doing here. They're like, just, if you have a chance, try to walk up and just thank them and walk away. So just kind of people standing there waiting and walking off.
Yeah, there was one at the end where, like, I don't know if you guys caught it, but it was just as it was fading out into the next scene that it was just as it was fading out to the next scene, somebody goes to give him a hug,
Yeah.
and then like he goes down to go like this, and they kind of do this like awkward, like, I don't know if they're supposed to hug each other or not. I don't know if you guys caught that or not.
Yeah. So
No.
the person's back was to you and was like significantly short. I think it was a female. I wasn't 100% sure. I know exactly what Gordon's talking about.
Should have been Corey and Trevor doing this and him leaving them hanging.
And from there, it's like we get this kind of final chunk of the episode where it's nighttime and Julian's home sitting in his kitchen, and like he's talking to the camera and telling them it's been a pretty good day, but now it's time to have some drinks and turn off the camera. But Ricky walks up to the window and tells him, I have nowhere to stay. My dad's drunk and me and Lucy are over, and asks if he can just sleep in the car. And Julian shuts the shade on him, like as
He
he's
just
talking.
lowers the shade.
And he's like, "Thanks,
Thanks,
Doesn't
Julian."
close the window, just lowers the shade.
Yeah. And then you kind of flash forward a little later, and Julian sees him still outside with nowhere to go. And he starts to feel bad for him. He says, I said I'd stay away from him, but he's a good guy. And then Julian goes outside, and like Ricky's like, "Oh, I'm leaving. He's like, no. And he hands him a bottle of vodka and a bag of uncooked hot dogs.
Hey, uncooked hot dogs is just baloney.
It's true. They're pre-cooked.
But I was so like, for all the weird things that have happened in this episode, handing him the uncooked hot dogs was like, I was like, what just happened? What's going? I was so
It's
confused.
an olive branch.
I
or a
think
hot
it's
dog
just
branch.
also you have to realize too, like this is a trailer park. This is like a lower income place. Like hot dogs are probably like very prevalent there. They're cheap. There's a bunch of them in the pack and stuff like that. So I think
They're
they really
delicious.
got that part of the culture down pretty well.
Yeah, they
He
eat a
could've-
lot of hot dogs and chicken nuggets.
He could have
They
like
make-
boiled a couple of them for him though, and been like, "Hey, I made you a couple hot dogs."
Even a microwave, like do something. Like hot
Listen,
dogs
he
and
brought-
vodka. It's like
He
my
brought
like
him
uncooked-
all that other stuff, all right? He did enough.
It was like it was an already open pack of hot dogs, like in the Ziploc bag. that he just hands it.
They were in the
whole, like,
Ziploc
rest of it.
bag, which I liked. It's funny though, because it's like, I don't know. That's probably, I mean, if you just grilled those or tried to half-ass cook them over a chimney fire we shouldn't have lit or something, like that's just us hanging out at 20. You know what I mean? Like, what do you guys have for dinner tonight? Like, a vodka and hot dogs with no buns. Be like, cool, can I come over?
And
I wonder if
It
it
was-
was Cyrus's hot dogs. Because they never see Julian go to any stores.
They
they
were
were
either Cyrus's
Trevor
or Corey or Trevor's.
he tells him like he can sleep in the car for 2 nights. He also hands him a blanket, and like that's the, I'll give you. He's trying to. He doesn't want to help him, like, because his instinct originally was I have to stay away from him now that we're out of jail, but he can't help it, so he's trying to do as little as possible. So he offers him 2 nights in the car, and Ricky's like, yeah, like no longer than 2 weeks.
His immediate
2
rebuke
weeks,
is
I
like,
promise you.
yeah, sure.
Ironically, that's his home for like most of the show.
I do
And then,
appreciate
like-
though that he goes to his house and he's like, I've got no place to crash. Can you please help me out? Can I sleep in your car? like there's no negotiating there. Like you at least, if you think you're gonna end up in the car, you start with the couch. You know what I mean? Like you try
Right.
to see if you can get better.
He's a man of simple needs.
And like that last shot you get is Ricky just getting into the car and then taking like a big swig from the bottle and just taking a bite of one of the hot dogs. I'm like, just a weird way to end that one.
He should have got a hot dog toaster.
Correct.
That's true. He could have plugged into the cigarette lighter in the car.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder what kind of hot dogs. All I could think of is that I'm sure they were like the worst level. Because like, look, hot dogs are pretty much lips, hooves, and assholes, no matter what. Like they're not like
Yeah,
The
they're already
best.
the worst.
group of meat, but you can go really bad. One time we bought some called Bar S.
Bar S, they're $1 a pack.
Yeah, because that's why we bought them, because they were $1 a pack. Not only did they taste bad, but like 20 minutes after making them, I was like, I don't feel very good. And then I broke out in hives, and everyone was like, what's going on? And we looked at the package and was like, may contain fish. And we're like, how the fuck can the hot dogs contain fish? And they did, and I got like a severe allergic reaction. Like nobody knew what to do. Like my tongue swelled up. I had hives. Like luckily it wasn't shellfish or my fucking throat would have closed. But I was just, because you would never think like, well, the hot
How
dogs
the-
shouldn't have fish in them. Like I shouldn't have to check for that, right?
I'm allergic to cinnamon.
How did Joe die? Shellfish allergy to hot dogs.
How sad would you be if the last bite of food you ever took was a Bar S hot dog?
A 10-cent
It's so
hot dog.
fucking depressing.
Did you learn your lesson and not get cheap ass hot dogs from now on?
Imagine the
Yeah,
factory.
I did. I said at that point I'd rather buy good hot dogs than not have hot dogs.
Yeah.
You know, it's 0 or good. I mean, this
Oh,
was
you gotta
years
get, like,
ago.
the
We were
boar's
very
head.
broke.
You gotta get the boar's head or something like that.
Get
Can't
a good
fuck around.
Fenway Frank.
That's
No, I
hilarious.
get the
Pump
Hebrew
when you cook
National.
'em.
I'm not a big hot dog guy, but Hebrew
Nathan's,
National usually.
I like the natural casings.
The Nathans
yeah.
are good, yeah.
And I
I
also
love a
really
good
do
hot
like
dog.
just like the ballpark Franks.
Me
Yeah.
too. You got to learn all beef is the only way to do it.
Yeah, KM's good too.
KM's good too.
Local
Yeah, and I
brand.
do love that for Boston people in the summertime when you drive over the Tobin Bridge on a windy day, there's a good quarter-mile stretch that just smells like hot dogs because the wind takes it right from under
Yeah.
the smokestacks.
That's terrible.
I love it. I was like, ooh, hot dog mile.
For those of you who don't live in the area too, we grew up in an area where one of the biggest events in Boston every year is called the Hot Dog Safari, where you buy a ticket and can eat unlimited hot dogs from
You get
multiple
to drive
vendors.
through and feed the hot dogs.
Is that still a thing?
Watch out, honey. That's the bar ass. Don't feed him.
Is that still a thing?
I don't.
No,
Pandemic
I don't
era,
think
I don't
so.
know if
Yeah,
there's
with
still
COVID, who
a Hot
knows?
Dog Safari. One day I'm sure it'll come back.
Also, I think one of the Fandom Gourmet guys went down.
Like
On
they
who?
died?
Not a prison guard, but I'm pretty sure he just said some shit he shouldn't have, or did something he shouldn't have. He said some shit, maybe. I don't know.
Oh,
I
so
don't know
now
the
the
whole story.
entire city of Boston can enjoy unlimited hot dogs for a low cost ticket.
Look, I'm just saying. I don't remember exactly what happened, but when one of the organizers of an event goes down like that, usually
June 25th at Suffolk Downs.
Yep, there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, the hot dog safari.
It's back at Suffolk Downs.
Yeah, because the track is still there. They took down the building and stuff, but
This-
Just to double check though, and sorry for the. I guess now it's a free promotion for Hot Dog Safari for those of you who live in the Massachusetts area. Nick, are you sure they just haven't updated the website in 15 years?
well, I'm not sure because it doesn't give a date, but this
Okay.
year, no, No, but this year's June 25th is a Saturday. So
Okay.
Okay, but quick question, Nick. The hot dogs will be there, but will Cigar's uniform be there? Because I will
Cigar!
go. Cigar's uniform is there.
Yep. Oh, no, yeah. Here's the date. Saturday, June 25th, 2022, 12 to 5.
And what's the price?
What is the price? It doesn't say. Maybe it's free.
I doubt it.
I'm all for giving money to charity and supporting things like that. I just feel like I don't know how many hot dogs you all could eat, but I don't think I could eat more than 3. Like at that
Like
point,
I said, I've
general
gone, but-
admission is $10. The
okay,
beer,
that's not bad.
$10.
That's very good. That's
The
easy.
beer
not bad.
lovers,
The price of a hot dog. if
the
you
beer
went to,
lovers
like, a
package is
game.
$48. And you get early admission, 3 craft beers of your choice, koozie, and unlimited bottle water during the festival. So you're basically paying $50 for 3 beers.
for 3 beers.
I don't
But
know
also,
if
you get to
that's-
come early so that by the time the kids come, you're handsy and drunk, which is really what you want.
Oh, okay.
What?
But, yeah, I guess that's a good place to end off. So, yeah, so that's
Joe's at the hot dog fire grabbing the wrong kind of wieners.
No, it's Joe Petto.
$10. I could also get, 80 bar S hot dogs for $10. So
Yeah.
true.
Also, if you just wanted 3 craft beers and you had $50 in your pocket, you could probably get 4 craft beers for that same price.
Yeah, so in any event, that concludes the first episode of Trailer Park Boys. I don't know much, I'm going into this again. This is the first time I've watched it, so I don't really have much to say in addition to what I've experienced. I've kind of asked my questions as we went along. For those of you who have watched it, and anything else you want to bring up before we get into our final, Nick, you were kind of stating your claims before about the show before you cancel.
Like I said, I don't know how you're going to go, but give it a shot, especially Joe. This is a very, very, very much a Joe show. I'm not sure about Jay. Jay, I mean, it is a foreign show technically, so Jay should hate it.
Jay
I
does
don't hate foreign shows.
You
I don't
do.
hate
You've only
foreign
greenlit
shows.
one of them. But yeah, no, it's also like you said, Joe. I wish I could just. You said, I wish I could just start in season 4. You kind of can. The continuity from episode to episode is not super strict. Okay, you're gonna miss part of.
It isn't in a season, but not from season to season.
Right? Yeah. You'll miss something, but if you really wanted to just start season 4, episode 1, you're not gonna miss a whole lot, and then when you make your way back around, you'll get it more. Definitely give it a shot though, because it's fantastic all around.
All right, so let's get into the green light or cancel. I'm going to go in the order I see you guys in. So, Nick, I'm going to start with you.
Cancel. No, I'm just kidding. Obviously, this is a green light. Few shows bring me as much joy as this show does. I cannot separate this pilot from the rest of the series as well as I've tried to do with other shows I have seen. But even having said that, I do think it's a good pilot. I do think you get a great idea of the characters. There's a lot of characters, and I think they do a good job of kind of giving you a good idea of all of them in a short amount of time. Just from the first episode alone, the hijinks, I want to see more of them. I want to see what other trouble these guys are getting into. Why are they going to jail so often? What's the deal with Ricky's family? Do Julie and Ricky ever, make amends and stuff like that? There's a lot in the episode that makes me want to keep watching and see what's going to happen with them. So it's a easy green light. I knew it was going to be a green light, but the pilot was better than I remembered it being. Actually, I didn't have high hopes for it, but watching it again definitely revitalized my love for the show. Big green light.
Ferg.
So yeah, like Nick said, this is a tough one to separate from the full thing. This is a great show. It becomes hilarious. That being said, that's the reason we do this show, is to show that some of the best shows have terrible pilots and some of the worst shows have good pilots. And I can't in good conscience greenlight this one. I thought it was a bad pilot. It's really off, and I don't know if I would have greenlit it if I didn't know the whole show. It's almost like a reverse thing where I know how great it gets, so I'm giving this a harder time than it deserves. But none of the other people I love. You don't have Julian holding his booze the whole time. You don't got you don't have drunk Lahey and his relationships, which I won't go into. It's just so much more. Bubbles isn't a main character, and it's confusing. And we went through a lot of stuff where it doesn't have the, like, it's stuff that shouldn't have confused you guys, and it did. And that's not saying a good pilot if it can confuse people watching for the first time. So I'm going to cancel this show that I love so much, and it hurts.
Joe.
This is one of the first ones I've been going back and forth on so hard. Like I mentioned earlier, I wrote like, is this supposed to be funny? And that doesn't mean it wasn't entertaining. I just didn't feel like it was a sitcom or that I was supposed to be laughing at certain points. And I had mentioned earlier that I thought it was very much like a Kevin Smith movie. It felt like Clerks, right? And then a minute ago, when I hit my microphone because I wanted to write down a note, is because what this felt like to me finally hit me. It feels like a trauma movie. And it feels like a trauma movie from around this time. Something like Terra Firma, where they're doing like, it's low budget and the acting is bad and it's campy and some scenes are supposed to be funny. But if you stick with it, it gets you. You know what I mean? A bunch of people I really trust opinions love this show. You know, friends, family, people seem to love it. I don't think it's a great pilot because I think they throw too much at you. I'm going to watch it for sure. I think this very much is like The League, which was a show I picked, where people who hadn't seen The League, we were saying like, look, the pilot is not the best place to start off for this show. You have to watch a few episodes and it picks up and you get it. And because of that, I'm actually, oh God, it's so hard. I'm gonna greenlight it because I feel like it's The League. I feel like I can tell that it's gonna be good from this pilot. I just don't quite understand it, but it's not stopping me from wanting to watch more of it. Is that, I don't know. This is the weirdest and most conflicted and longest greenlight I've ever had for a show, but I'm gonna greenlight it even though I just think it's kind of weird and not that funny, but I want to see more.
It's funny. I took the same path, but the opposite way.
Yeah.
Gordo.
I think you guys kind of hit the nail on the head. This pilot doesn't have in it what makes the show the show. Doesn't have the interaction really between Ricky, Bubbles, and Julian, the Mr. Lahey character, and Randy, and all that fun stuff. However, at one point, I watched this episode and plowed through the rest of the series. So there is something there that makes it's a diamond in the rough. You can see it's going to be really good. And this, like I said, this pilot made me watch the series. So ultimately I want to keep going, but I can see how everyone could go either way. So it's a green light for me.
All right. So for me, and my vote does not technically matter at this point because we do have 3 green lights, but I am going with Ferg and I have to cancel it. I'll say this. This is a show that I avoided for years and people always talked about it and I would see little clips and I'm like, I have no interest in watching this at all. Having now watched the first episode, it was not exactly what I expected it to be. And I can see how there are things to it that I might like. So I would be interested to maybe try another episode out if like you guys were to say, if you're going to watch one more episode, watch this one. And then maybe I'll give it a shot. But having just watched episode 1, my desire to continue watching, had I not been suggested it by people, if I was just had caught it on television with no knowledge, I wouldn't want to really keep watching. There was just a lot of stuff that confused me. The only thing that really made me actually turn a little bit more towards it is when we started comparing it to Clerks and stuff. Then once I started drawing those comparisons, I was like warming up to it more as we talked about it. But the initial impression watching episode 1 was just that, I don't know, I never really laughed at anything that was happening. There was a couple lines I thought were fun, but it was really like, it felt like this was supposed to be sketches, like not a full show. Because the community access television aspect of it, the poor acting, the deliveries, like it just didn't capture me in a way that I was like, this is a show I really need to like sink my teeth into. Just something that if it's on, it's on. Like not something I could really get invested in. Knowing its fandom and suggestions, I'm not unwilling now, having watched an episode, to maybe give it another shot. But based on the pilot alone, I have to give it a cancel. Again, we have 3 green lights. We talked about this before. I kind of think like for like Nick, for you to green light it, I think is a lot like when you got on me for greenlighting Parks and Rec. And it's just one of those, it is hard to remove yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how you could go, like Gordo said, I can see how you could go either way on this show.
And like, it's kind of like, and like Joe's greenlight's curious to me as well, because everything he said leaned towards canceling. And I think ultimately his decision to greenlight was really based on outside factors. And
That's because Joe greenlights everything.
Joe greenlights almost everything. Yeah. But
I love television so much.
So like, I think it was just like he had just enough people tell him it will be good for him to have faith. But I think really, if you just go by this episode, maybe not so much. But we're all independent thinkers and we're all allowed to vote as we choose. So congratulations to Trailer Park Boys. You do get the green light from us with a 3 out of 5. So congrats on that. You live on to see another day. That's all the time we have for this week. So I do want to remind everyone, go to S1E1pod.com. I don't think I stressed it enough at the top of this episode or at all. So go to S1E1pod.com. That is where you find all the links to where to listen to us and all our social medias. Please rate, review, subscribe, do all that stuff. It means a lot to us. We say it every week. Spread the word. If you like the show, repost something we put out. Let people know. Let your friends know. Suggestions, word of mouth goes a long way. Just like Joe greenlighting this because all his friends told him he'd like it. If you like this show, tell other people about it. Maybe they'll like it too.
It's because it reminds me of Terror Firmer.
Yeah. Okay. So that's it, guys. That's all we have. Thank you. Catch you next week. Goodbye.
I don't think we got the best Tommy Dreamer.